Welcome to the show.
And welcome back to another episode of the AstrosFuture podcast here on the Believe Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Price, also known as AstrosFuture. You can find my work at astrosfuture.com and find me on X at AstrosFuture.
I'm your co-host, Kenny Van Doren. You can actually follow some of my Astros prospect work at On3 and Rivals now. Jimmy, I don't know if you've seen some of those stories I've written about our buddy Bryce Mayer.
Yeah, I did see that. Yeah, good stuff. So before we get any further, I want to make sure I say this. If you like the show, give us a review, drop us some stars, make sure you subscribe wherever you get your podcast, Apple, Spotify, wherever. But kind of where we're at now, Kenny, we're about, I guess you could say, a month and a half maybe into the season, a little over a month in the minor league season. And we figured it was a good time to kind of look at the rosters, talk about who's doing well, and go ahead and give our predictions for maybe the next promotion for each team. So we won't necessarily say this player is like ready today, but I figured with our selections, we could say, hey, this is the next guy that needs to get promoted up a level. So if we start with Sugarland, we'll go Sugarland up to the majors, and then we'll just work our way down. Sound good?
Yeah. So, I think that the toughest part we will run into is the guys going from Sugarland to the bigs. And I'm 100%. Sure our minds will probably go right to that pitching staff to start.
Without a doubt. Yeah. So I'll give the team record. So like Sugarland's sitting at 18-21. We talked about it, especially when we recorded our roster show. You know, they're filled with a lot of journeyman guys. I mean, I'm looking right now, the average age on the out of the hitters is 29 years old. So there's not really the typical prospects, but there are some people there to help, and I'll probably steal like the first one that you were thinking of. We'll go back and forth on hitter and pitcher here, but I'm going to immediately go to the pitching side, and Oliver Santos had a phenomenal year. Got off to a great start last year in AA Corpus Christi. Finally pitching in relief permanently. It looked really good, and then he got promoted to AAA and kind of had some struggles. But this year has been it's been a complete turnaround for him. 16 innings, he's allowed 3 earned runs, so it works out to a 1.69 ERA. He struck out 22. And I think what's also big is he only walked 6. I think if I'd have to go pull up his stats, but last year when he was in AAA, he had more walks than innings pitched. The strikeouts weren't nearly as high. So really good start for him. When you're looking at probably the most impactful prospect right away, it's probably him. You know, there's some starters that we might talk about as well, but great start to the season for Santa. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what he can do. And if things stay this way, injuries continue to happen, he's probably going to get an opportunity at some point this year.
Good on the Astros to move him to a reliever these past 2 years, and it's worked out. We've seen it before where the Astros maybe take a little too long, try to see how far they can stretch maybe a guy as a starter. We've seen with someone like Misael Tamarez, who at one point was having pitches being compared to Christian Javier at certain points in their developments, especially at AA. But you let Santa be a reliever these past 2 years, and it's really worked out well in his favor. And there's going to be guys in this bullpen that won't be around next season due to contracts being up, to probably not going to be tendered contracts as well. I think he's going to fall right into that camp of being someone the Astros probably rely on sooner than later, and especially maybe this season too, if they need to call him up at all. Jimmy, the second pitcher is a tough one. I'll admit it. We've spoken about it at length that this AAA team is filled with a lot of guys that have either pitched in the big leagues or have been journeymen in their own rights. But guys like Jose Fleury was one that came to mind. It's like, how is he doing? Development list for him. Hudson Leach, someone we were pretty excited about, someone you did an interview with, has not had the best starts through 13 games. His ERA is bordering 10 at the moment. It's at 9.26. Guys like Joey Mancini intrigue me as someone who could probably eat innings in some capacity in the near future, but he's not someone that's ready as well. Miguel Uola is on the 40-man roster, but when you look at the strikeouts to walk ratio in recent games, it's like 4-5, 3-6. He's only had really one good start in that capacity of controlling his command and his control, and it was his first start of the year back in late March. I'm going to go with Ethan Pecco in this spot, and not saying that it's right around the corner, Jimmy, because we've seen it that he hasn't eclipsed 4 innings this year, and he's coming back from an injury that delayed his start to the year. He wasn't someone in big league camp while the Astros put a lot of emphasis on guys that were on the 40-man roster, maybe some relievers, but also guys with experience, kind of just letting him ease into it. I still think he debuts at some point this year. I think it's just a matter of time once he's really built up that arm and that shoulder back again, in innings, getting up, maybe 5 or 6 in these next couple of starts. And then we're kind of in that conversation of, will Ethan Pecco join that 40-man roster and debut in June or July?
Yeah, and it's early. It's obviously he looked good in Fayetteville in his rehab, and you mentioned the 3 games. He's only totaled 8.2 innings, but he has 12 strikeouts, only allowed the 1 run. And fastball, sinker, everything looking good up to I think almost 97 miles per hour. So if you're looking at maybe who's the top pitching prospect in the system, you're probably looking at an Ethan Pecco. I know there could be an argument for a couple other guys, but yeah, that would be the one that would probably make the most waves, on the MLB roster. Offensively, you look at it, and there's not a ton there. There's depth guys. They've picked up a few guys. Daniel Johnson, they got the other day, played in 4 games, has some good numbers. But really, if they're going to get some contributions, it's going to be from the pitching side. So if you don't have anything else on Sugarland, we'll bump down to Corpus Christi. I think that's where things start to really get interesting.
Yeah, before we do that, I mean, just 2 names that have put up good numbers. I know people probably are interested in is James Nelson on the older side. He's at 28, a guy that they picked up from was one of those lower leagues, and Colin Price as well. I mean, what's up with that, Jimmy? That's really cool to see for him. Someone who's been a friend of this podcast for a while. He's found it out offensively. I will point out that he has an OPS over 800 through 30 games. I mean, that's a good spot for him. A team that's been banged up at catcher. He is in the wings if the Astros ever need him.
Definitely. Yeah, I just scrolled up and happened to look at him. Yeah, 7 doubles, 6 homers, 15 RBIs in 30 games. Like you mentioned, OPS over 800. Good numbers for him. So the Hooks, they're sitting at 15 and 18 right now. AA Corpus Christi. We'll go to once again, we're not saying that this person is maybe ready for the promotion like right now, but who's the next one that would get that bump up? So we can kind of do some projection there. And there's a few names probably in AA that I think you're going to think of and that I probably have in my mind as well. But my mind immediately goes to Will Bush as the first one that might be due for promotion at some point in the near future. I know it's still super early for him in AA. 27 games this year, I think maybe like 15 there last year, but 815 OPS, 23 walks in 27 games, got 4 homers, 12 RBIs, which I know some people would look at that and think, oh, he's not driving in runs, but he's been batting leadoff a lot as one of the bigger guys on the team, but he's on base percentage of 408. So I would definitely look at Bush as one offensively that could maybe get a promotion at some point this season in the near future. But who's kind of catching your eye, Kenny?
I'll point out too, Sugarland's been good about carrying 3 catchers at a time and getting those guys consistent ABs, if that's at first base or at DH as well. Right now they do have Fernando Caldero called up, more of just a replacement player at this moment, coming up from high A and holding down a spot. If Yainer Diaz is out an extended period of time and you're keeping Cesar Salazar up there a while, maybe that does open something in the future for Will Bush if that opens. Position player wise, no one's really, calling my name. I thought Trevor Austin had a very nice week. UDFA, just another example of the Astros finding success there. We've seen some other guys go up recently to AA, one of those being Max Holley, one of those like more glove first defenders in the Astros system. I'll look from a pitching standpoint. Jimmy is my guy that I want to note, and that's Nick Swanson. I mean, at this point, what do the Astros have to lose? They've moved guys up. I know they're focusing on him as a reliever this year. All 9 of his outings have been in relief. He has 28 strikeouts in 20 innings so far this season. The WHIP is around 1.25. His ERA is a little bit higher at 3.6. I think that'll go down with time. I think he's responded really well in some of his outings, and he's even gotten out of jams when he's put himself in a pickle. His last relief appearance was here on Sunday. This past Sunday, he gave up a hit and 2 walks in an inning and still got out of it. I still think that's a plus. He's been around for a while. He's a Jim Stevenson guy, Astros scout in that Oklahoma area. I still think there's something there to test his reliever. I know reliever ways. I know it might not be the longest leash for him once he gets up to AAA, just being on the older end. He was taken in the 2021 draft. He's been in the system for a while. I've always kind of been a fan of him as a starter. But give him that test at AAA sooner or at some point this summer.
Yeah, I really thought you were going to go with Bryce Mayer as the one that's deserving a promotion.
I think so too.
Understandably, there 18 and 2/3 innings. He has 31 strikeouts. 8 earned runs, but good numbers for him. Like you mentioned, Swanson's probably due for an opportunity. We talked about it, I think, maybe on the last one we did, not with Cole Hertzler, but prior to that about the promotion of him, maybe Swanson and Joey Mancini. But when I look at the pitching side, a guy I think I want to see get an opportunity in Sugarland is James Hicks. And you may look at his overall numbers, a 4.55 ERA, but 25 strikeouts in 29 innings. And if you kind of look at his game logs, he's had a couple that weren't great starts. So he's had some that are really good. But I think what also stands out to me is if I remember right, Sugarland is using a different ball than the rest of the minors. They're getting to use the big league ball. And when James Hicks went to the Arizona Fall League, he mentioned using that ball made his sinker so much better, which gave him a lot of success there. I'm curious to see how he pitches in AAA with that big league ball, and if that really makes that big of a difference for him. And he has success there, the next thing you know, it's the MLB. So despite him having a 4.55 ERA and maybe the overall numbers not looking great, he's had a couple good outings, and I really want to see him get that opportunity with the different baseball to see how his pitches respond.
He's a guy with a complete rotation. I don't think there's just one pitch that jumps out at you. I think all of them are in that 50 grade range, which is not a bad thing whatsoever. If you have everything consistently moving, you are probably looking at a good spot in that back end of a rotation, maybe even at the third spot if everything is playing in your favor, like you mentioned with that sinker being a pretty good pitch for him. I'll give just a quick shout out to Tyler Whitaker. This has been the best offensive start for him in his entire professional career. If you know that name, he was a top pick for the Astros back in 2021. He was a third rounder after the Astros lost their first and second round picks due to the sign stealing scandal. And he's batting .262. OPS is at .755. The on-base percentage is jumping off the page at me, Jimmy. He has 16 hits this year, only 3 for extra bases, but he's walking 19 times to his 21 strikeouts. I think that's just kind of a new outlook that you've seen throughout this Astros system. Guys like Kevin Alvar or Xavier Nayans has shown it this past week with more walks and strikeouts. And it's something that's kind of trickling through different parts of the system. And I think Tyler Whitaker is reaping the benefits of that.
Yeah, it's man, you pointed out. I mean, I'm looking at the box scores. I'm looking at his average every night, and he's getting a couple of hits, driving in some runs, steal a couple of bases, and I see his average sitting at 262. I didn't really look at the walk and strikeout, and he's never put up a walk to strikeout ratio like that, and that's through 22 games. It's a pretty good sample in Double-A. The Astros went ahead and just challenged him up there, but yeah, great to see out of Whitaker. Best OPS he's had in his career. The 19 walks to 21 strikeouts. Yeah, it's really good to see. It'd be awesome to see him just capture a little success. And he's been in the system a long time, but he's still only 23 years old, so still time there for him. Jumping down, we'll go ahead and jump down to Asheville. We hit our Corpus Christi, and I think this is where it really starts to get interesting because I feel like as you're getting a little bit lower in the system, not only is the level of prospect maybe moving up, but it's guys that haven't been tested to that higher level. And I think I guess I'll take the first one. And once again, I feel like I always get the layups here, but Jason Chavone, phenomenal numbers so far. And I know he's got 45 strikeouts in 29 games, but 15 home runs, 33 walks, like the definition of 3 true outcome right there. OPS of almost 1,200. And we've talked about Asheville being hitter friendly, and it's not very deep to right. Center field is like, I think it's like 380 maybe, but it's got a big wall. But I've seen some of the homers he's hitting, and it doesn't matter where he's hitting them. He's getting them out. It has nothing to do with, playing in, I don't even know what they call it now, home Truist Park, maybe, or something like that.
I think so, yeah.
Not McCormick Field anymore, but It doesn't matter where he's playing. He's hitting home runs. Obviously, you'd love to see the strikeouts cut down a little bit, but seeing that kind of power from a catcher, and, I think if you go back and look at his numbers, I believe, right, it was kind of similar last year where he had some home runs, had some good walks. The OPS looked solid, but just had some strikeout concerns. And just really cool to see him have so much success. I mean, 15 home runs. I'd have to go look, but that might lead all of minor league baseball. I don't know where that number sits, but
yeah, I know I know it's up there. I was looking at it. Eloy with Baltimore hit 3 yesterday, and he was up to 10. And I know he was kind of in that top conversation of guys. Talk about, I mean, that top of that draft for the Orioles, I ended up being really good. Ike Irish is doing well as well. When those guys are in the same lineup, they're playing really good baseball. I'll stick on the position player side, Jimmy, and I'll go Justin Thomas Jr. I think he's having a sneaky good year so far. I think it's a little bit more unheralded because, strikeouts wise, the number's a little high. He's 37 strikeouts through 22 games, but he does have 22 walks. He has 13 stolen bases. He's only been caught once. He's batting .293. His OPS is over 900. He has 3 homers, 5 doubles. It's not like he's not hitting anything with any slug behind it, even though his on-base percentage is higher. But he's getting on base, and he's stealing bases. He's putting himself in scoring position. He also has 14 RBIs to his name. I think he's going to be in that conversation, Jimmy, once you get to August and after the draft. He might be slipping into your top 30 if you're not already considering it. And I think other people are going to start to notice that as well.
Yeah, definitely. He was on an article I wrote this morning. Actually, I chose 4 prospects outperforming their preseason rankings. Number one, obviously Cole Hertzler, Will Bush, and then I had Justin Thomas as the last one, and then Neymar Ochoa. He was, and we'll get down to him in a second. He was on a top 30 list, ended up falling off because the freak car accident last year. But yeah, Justin Thomas was on that list as a guy that I would say is outperforming his ranking. His preseason ranking was unranked in the top 30, and you mentioned it, great numbers. They paid a little bit more than slot last year to get him in the 11th round, 22 years old. Almost kind of reminds you of like maybe the same kind of rise we saw from Pascal Ferreras. I know he was the Mr. Irrelevant, but he went straight to high A following the draft and made it up to double A pretty quick. So, but yeah, that team has some decent performers. I know the name probably people wanted to hear about early on was Ethan Fry, and he got off to a little bit of a slow start, but he's kind of turned things around a little bit. OPS is now above 700, hitting 243, had that 2-homer game this week. So starting to see some signs that he's going to break out of that slump he was on as well.
A lot of credit to this past week. He didn't go a single game without a hit. He had 5 walks over his last 2 games as well. He was a guy that I felt like I might have jinxed Jimmy by saying that I think he's going to be the top prospect in the system by years, or not even year's end, by the midseason update. But all around, he's really pieced together a good week to improve those numbers, and now it's just kind of building on that. These guys responded well. I think this is a pros pro LSU guy. He's a winner, even at the high school ranks. I think he'll be just fine.
Yeah, and like I said, based on how slow the kind of start was, when you look at it and you see the average at 243 and the OPS over 700 now, you're like, okay, the numbers are coming. He'll get there. We're a month into the season. But I'll jump down to the pitching side. I just mentioned him. I think the one that would probably be due for a promotion here pretty quick is Cole Hertzler. Not just because the numbers he's put up, 34 strikeouts in 22 innings, 2.78 ERA, but he's 23 years old, drafted 2 years ago. I know he missed pretty much all of last year. Well, I think he did miss all of last year after getting that injury in spring training or early in spring. But good numbers, 23 years old, probably almost ready for that double A challenge. I kind of chose him as maybe the dark horse pick for Astros minor league pitcher of the year. And it's off to a good start for him. The walks, I think, kind of crept up on him at the last couple outings. But 34 Ks, 22 innings, looking really, really good.
This kind of takes me back, Jimmy, because I usually try to toggle the players by WHIP or ERA just to see how people are doing. And it took me back to a story I remember I did with Sean Buchanan, the assistant Astros minor league pitching coordinator, but he was with Sugarland, or he might have been still with with Asheville at the time, just talking about Ryan Gusto going back to that 2023 season. And we talk a lot about that 2023 Hooks team, and it was just a fun rotation to talk about. Ryan Gusto got moved up after having a 6.47 ERA through 12 games, 6 of those being starts, and the other 6 were out of relief and a piggyback. You just can't put too much value into ERA in the South Atlantic League, especially with Astros pitching prospects. There's some underlying numbers that we just aren't, being able to see just from TrackMan data. Some of these guys will move up. And I'll just pick someone who's kind of in a similar camp, who's been, pretty beat up by the injury bug in recent years, didn't pitch in all of 2024. And we know Gusto had Tommy John at one point as well. Nolan DeVos, he's 25. He's a guy that we were pretty high on back in the 2022 draft, taken in the 5th round out of Davidson. He's got 31 strikeouts and 23 and a third innings. But when you look at some of those other numbers, the WHIP is 1.7, the ERA is 7.04 through 6 games, 5 of those being starts. And his last time out was not a good outing for him either, with 11 earned runs. And that's really what's outweighing it. It was only 3 and a third innings. So I think Nolan DeVos, probably another guy in that camp that we talked about, maybe not having the longest leash just because you are a little bit on the older side and was drafted 4 years ago. But I think he's someone that's probably going to have that test in Corpus Christi sooner or later to see if he can still climb the system.
Yeah, and I think we saw a few other starters that had success there, got moved, or not the most of success. Strikeout numbers are good, like Spencer Arrighetti, Chase McDermott, when those two were striking out a ton of guys there, and they ended up moving up and having success. But yeah, you mentioned it. He was in high A when he got hurt, and he's kind of back in there. The strikeout numbers are good, 31 and 23 innings. And really, I think if we would have recorded this podcast probably on like Friday before he had that last start where I think he gave up 11 runs in 3 innings, the numbers would have looked a lot better. I think it was, if I remember right, I think it was 11 hits in 3 innings. If I'm just doing quick math here, that means he was at like 12 and 20 innings, prior to that start. So yeah, I'm with you. I think he's another guy that could probably be ready for that test. So we'll jump down to Fayetteville. Oh, I didn't even say the Asheville record. I know record is what it is. At the end of the day, you're trying to win. But Asheville record is sitting at 8-25. The pitching staff overall is just it's been a little rough, 7.75 ERA. But Fayetteville, once again, we're moving down to some more really good prospects. And if we're looking at who's maybe due for a move up, I'm gonna steer clear of the Kevin Alvarez or Xavier Nyans, despite some really good numbers. I just wrote something on him. I mean, I think the walk rate that we see from him is pretty incredible. And if you watch the games, I think I texted you. He had a game where he saw 17 pitches and he swung at one of them and he drew 4 walks or 3 walks. He was over 1 or 3 walks on 17 pitches. He's just a very, very selective hitter. He doesn't swing and miss a ton. There's been some called strikeouts and he's taken some strikes, getting into some counts where maybe he's got 2 strikes on him. But the power, it would have been hard to imagine a better start for the Astros first round pick last year than what he's doing right now. 985 OPS, 6 homers, 8 stolen bases. I'm not saying he's ready for promotion. I don't think the Astros need to rush him at all, but really good to see that start. Before I give my position player selection here, is there anything you want to say on Alvarez or Nyans?
Yeah, I think you've texted me and you said I want the guy to swing a little bit more. Exactly about Xavier Nyans. I'm in that camp too. We saw Kevin Sullivan. It was someone who's probably very similar in that sense of no one's ever going to get plunked as much as Kevin Sullivan does from the left side, but someone that's had a very advanced approach. And I think that's a good thing to see early on. It's a good thing to see for that maturity as a 19-year-old. He'll be 20 in October. But once he starts to find that zone, once pitches start coming into the zone a little bit more, I'm sure he'll do damage. You don't want to see that power tool diminish at all. We saw a little bit with Jacob Melton where the power started to fade as he went up the system. This is a guy with 65 grade power. It's his best tool behind his arm is number 2. You don't want to see that, fall at all. I'm sure that, it's just something that, he's mastering right now. But I think over time, you'll start to see that power start to play even more.
Yeah, and I think early on his strikeout percentage was, it was well in the 30s, mid 30s, and if you look at maybe the last like 20 games or 17 games, something like that, it's down into the 20s, 29%. I know at one point I had texted you over a 3-game stretch. He had 7 walks to 1 strikeout, so really good to see. Kevin Alvarez, we'll just do a quick update on him, I guess. Hitting 252, 4 doubles, 2 triples, 3 homers. Kind of a different kind of hitter, complete opposite of Nyans. He likes to swing. He's got 4 walks all season. He's kind of a more of a free swinger, but still putting up some good numbers for an 18-year-old. I know me and you texted this weekend about it. We've seen quite a few guys in the Astros system do really well in the DSL, and they just struggle to make that transition, especially when they get into full season ball. So even seeing him do this as an 18-year-old is definitely a sign in the right direction.
For sure.
Go ahead.
I think I was talking about this with Brett Chauncey as well over on his podcast, Jimmy, that I think it's going to just behoove the Astros to try to get those guys to move up together. Even from a PR standpoint, that is a huge plus for wherever they go for any of those teams. But also, if you see these guys as the future of, possibly your third baseman and, your center fielder, we've talked about it before. And with guys from the college ranks doing that with Drew Gilbert and Jacob Melton, sometimes moving up around the same time. But this is like 2 healthy guys. You haven't seen this, in recent memory with 2 high schoolers. I would say teenagers, not high schoolers, but this would be, pretty big for the Astros if these guys can move up at the same time.
Yeah, and it seems like they play together every game where one of them is out, the other's out, and they're either 1-2 in the lineup or they're 2-3 in the lineup. So that would be really cool. But we'll jump to the whole point of the podcast now about the people that are ready for promotion. And I know it's a favorite of yours. We've texted about it, but I would say Neomar Ochoa is due. He was there in 2024, had some good numbers. I think he had a above league average OPS, led the team in home runs, but he was 18 years old at the time. Obviously had the freak injury last year, just struggled to really get it going, but he's off to a phenomenal start this year. Best baseball he's played at this point in the pros, but through 26 games, he's hitting 326 and OPS over 900, 4 doubles, 4 homers, surprisingly 14 stolen bases, which is second on the team. Very impressive for a guy his size. I know he's playing a little bit of outfield, a little bit of first base, I believe. But he's probably ready for promotion, which is crazy to say. He's only 20 years old. Him and Anthony Hueso are the same age. They're 20, same draft class, both drafted at 17. But I would say he's ready for promotion to Asheville.
Yeah, when you look at it last year with the slow start after taking the hook to his head in that car accident, and just had some other hiccups along the way. It's not much you can put in that stock in those numbers. But this is third time through Fayetteville. Really just a second time of being healthy. Last year combined, Jimmy only played in 29 games. He's already up to 26 this year, so he's bordering on besting his game total from last season. And I told you this a couple weeks ago, and his numbers still stayed pretty on par, if even better. I said he's playing probably the most complete baseball in the system. And after seeing a little bit more of a guy down in Asheville and Justin Thomas Jr., I think those are the two guys playing most complete baseball. And you talk about stolen bases, walks, extra base hits, defense. Those two guys are playing really good baseball right now in the Astros system. And I think that's the easy ones to go there or to go with. Position player wise for me, his numbers have dipped a little bit regression to the mean. The K rate went up a tiny bit. I think Anthony Hueso sooner, or not, I wouldn't say sooner or later. I know I've been saying that a lot, but at some point this summer, maybe in the back end of June, July, if some of those college guys push him up. But, he's another guy that this is his first real just run at one system. After some injuries back in 2024, didn't really get off to a strong footing in the Florida Complex League, and then was filling in Asheville and in Corpus Christi late into the year. And then last year as well, he filled in at Sugarland for a couple of games after playing in the FCL and got his first real taste of Fayetteville. He's played more games in affiliated ball than ever so far in his 27 games. I know he's probably not someone you want to rush, but he's had, kind of a winding career as well since the 2023 draft. And heck, still only 20 years old, Jimmy. He's not going to be 21 this entire season. And he's going to have an opportunity, I think, at some point this year in Asheville. And I think his lefty swing might play really well in the South Atlantic League.
Yeah, you talk about moving, Nines and Alvarez up together. It'd be pretty cool to see Ochoa and Hueso go up. I know I guess, like I said, I think Ochoa almost seems like he's making that full season, or a full move to first base. But to see those two go up together after being back-to-back picks in the 2023 draft, and that different trajectory, which is interesting. Ochoa goes first to single A, and he gets that opportunity. Hueso's behind him. Ochoa has a rough year last year. Hueso finished the season great, and the next thing you know, he kind of jumps him in the prospect rankings. But to see both them move up, real quick, we'll hit on the pitching side. The pitching's been a little rough in Fayetteville, but there's a couple guys that are probably pushing due for a promotion. Javier Perez is off to a great start, 35 strikeouts and 29.2 innings, 2.73 ERA, only allowed 19 hits. 22-year-old, he pitched there last year after winning FCL Pitcher of the Year. Last year, made his way up to single A and did well, and he's obviously performed well there now. So we'll see how aggressive the Astros get. Like you said, it'll probably come more likely maybe around the draft time when they start adding more arms to the system, and maybe some of those guys that are pitching in the FCL right now are ready for that promotion to single A.
I wanted to go with Gable Pentecost as my guy until he kind of blew out his arm or had some kind of arm injury in one of his outings in late April, and he's on the injured list. It's tough, to kind of go down this list and try to pick one. I do like Yager Beck. I think the hits are a little bit higher than what you'd want. That whip is kind of bordering, I think, 1.63 right now, but 19 strikeouts through 16 innings, only 6 walks in that stretch. I think that's pretty good. He hasn't given up a home run either as a starter, and he's been a guy that both of us have liked. So I think Yager Beck will be in Asheville at some point this season.
Yeah, one other name that I was looking at that I think would probably get a promotion pretty quick if the numbers continue to do well. But Joey Dixon, drafted a couple of years ago, 23, pitched one game following the draft and was out until this year, which is extremely impressive. Had a great first outing. Second outing started real well, ended up giving a couple runs. But for the season, he's got 14 strikeouts in 6 1/3 innings. He's only walked 2, only allowed 3 hits. It's only 2 games, but 24 years old, given the numbers he's put up, I could see him being one that is probably due for Asheville here really soon.
Yeah, and that's kind of goes back to some of those guys, Jimmy, that we were pretty excited about coming out of Stanford. You liked all the numbers for Joey Dixon, and now you get to see it, but sometimes the leash might not be as long. But Brett Gillis was another one that we talked about two podcasts ago, and I think it's just really cool to see these guys still sticking around, the Astros giving them a chance.
Yeah, definitely. So I didn't pull up the FCL roster, and I can just go off the top of my head for a few guys, but I'm curious to see how some of those high schoolers from last year's draft, and then even the draft before, Ethan Wagner's there, started out okay. Jaron Williams is on a rehab assignment. I'm sure he'll be in Double A at some point. Lucas Spence as well. And then we'll look at the pitchers as well. But Ethan Wagner would probably be the one that I think would maybe get that promotion at some point from the FCL up to Fayetteville if the numbers continue to hold steady, which they have so far. I did find it interesting, though. 7th rounder last year, Jace Mitchell, I believe it was 7th round. He's walking a ton. I don't think he has a hit yet, unless he got a hit today. I didn't look at the stats so far today, but he's got 7 walks in 4 games, but he doesn't have a hit yet. I just thought that was interesting. It maybe he's kind of on that Xavier Nines approach where he's got it really good patience, and if they're not going to pitch it to him, he's not going to swing at it. But I thought that was interesting to see for a guy that's so young in his career to be taking that many walks.
Really cool to see it instilled with a lot of these teenagers and the high schoolers that are coming through. I know they're on the advanced side. That's why they were taken, where they were taken, but still seeing those numbers early on is a pretty good look for the Astros. I'll point out Ryan Matheson is a pitcher I'm pretty excited about once he gets up to the single A. He's on a rehab assignment right now in the FCL. I've heard a lot of good things about him from scouts, and I'm intrigued to finally see him get a full season, if that's in single A or half of it Nashville as well.
Definitely. Well, that's all I got, Kenny, unless you got anything else.
That's all it right. For me.
Well, that's going to do it for today's episode. So if you haven't already done so, please be sure to subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcast. As always, thank you so much for listening. We look forward to having you back for our next episode of the AstrosFuture podcast, covering your Astros in the minor league system.